Okay, so here's what happened. There was an event held in Los Angeles in the middle of March that allowed influencers in the press to get hands-on with Doom: The Dark Ages. Due to some scheduling conflicts, I was unable to attend. However, the individuals responsible for organizing this and Hugo Martin have given me a lot of information to allow me to still create a video in time for the embargo. I was provided with around 20 minutes of 4K B-roll footage, some excerpts from the soundtrack, some screenshots, and some time to sit down and have one-on-one conversation with the game's director, Hugo Martin, and ask pretty much anything I wanted about the game. We are not going to be combing over the entirety of this footage. The game's out in a month and a half. It's not worth it. Instead, I'm going to talk about the information I was able to get directly from Hugo Martin. Now, here are a few rules. Number one, I am not allowed to upload the B-roll directly. I can only use it in a video like this. B, I am not allowed to use recordings from the conversation I had with Hugo Martin. Instead, I need to quote and paraphrase. So just know that the information that we are discussing today is from a conversation I had with the game's director, and although I did record that conversation to be able to reference through the writing of this script, I am not allowed to use that recording. But please keep in mind that the information we are discussing here comes from the mouth of the director. I will specify if this information does not come from Hugo Martin or if I am speculating. This is King Novik, the leader of the Sentinels that was shown in the second level of Doom Eternal and shows up kind of as an ethereal ghost at a certain point in that level. He's using the Royal Atlan to help the Doomslayer fight within the Atlan levels. We'll get to that in a second, but there are 22 levels in this game, and about 15 to 20% of the game is spent either in the Atlan or flying around in the Dragon. We will talk about those specific levels in a minute, but 22 levels. King Novik's daughter, Thera, the woman from the trailer, is one of the voices in your head. Similar to how you had Vega and Dr. Samuel Hayden in Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal, Sentinel Knights, King Novik, and King Novik's daughter, Commander Thera, are the voices in your head and are major assets to the story. Player progression has been streamlined and is significantly more important than prior games. All player upgrades are received from what are called Sentinel Shrines, which are scattered all over all of the levels, and Hugo directly compared them to the Resident Evil 4 shopkeeper. Players spend gold, rubies, and gems, each going towards the same upgrades. However, the higher tier of upgrades, the higher tier of currency it will cost. The tiers of currency go in that order: gold, rubies, and then special gemstones. Currency is earned through secrets, optional encounters, optional pathways and optional dungeons, player challenges that are built into the UI, and of course completing levels. There are more secrets than ever before, to the point where optional side areas and rewarding the player with currency for player progression has been a core tenet within the game's development since the very beginning. These secrets also exist when playing in Atlan and Dragon levels, and these secrets are almost always far more than just a room off the side containing gold. There are also secret keys scattered amongst the level, being these purple keys that you can see in the HUD at certain points in the B-roll. The color purple seems to be representing something very important within Doom: The Dark Ages. We'll get to that in a second. Every aspect of the player can be progressed: weapons, shield, melee, and the player's own stats. Weapons all have a weapon mod. Effectively, you have the base weapon, and the mod is pretty much an entirely different weapon, but they take up the same slot and they use the same progression path. Most guns also have an empowered state, also unlocked through this progression path. In the B-roll footage, the Skull Crusher is shown lighting up yellow and firing much faster. This empowered state is slowly charged through proper parries. Parrying enemy projectiles is hugely important. We'll get to that later. There are 5 main weapons and a few extra weapons, but each of the 5 also have a mod which kind of just acts like a second weapon. So you have the Twin Barrel and its mod the Accelerator, the Skull Crusher and its mod the Pulverizer, the Rail Spike and its mod the Shredder, the Rocket Launcher and its mod a Grenade Launcher, and the Combat Shotgun and its mod the Super Shotgun. I also got confirmation that yes, this game does have its own BFG. However, Hugo is either not willing or not allowed to talk about what this is. We also have a weapon called the Reaver Chain Shot. It's shown being unlocked in the B-roll footage in a very different way than any other weapon. Almost every other weapon are given to the player in drop pods, sent directly to the Slayer by the Sentinels. So things like the Skull Crusher, the Twin Barrel, the Rail Spike, the Rocket Launcher, and the Combat Shotgun, Super Shotgun, and the mods, those are all sent down in these like drop pod shell things that open up and have the weapon inside. The Reaver Chain Shot is unlocked in this other area seen in the B-roll that looks a lot different than anything else seen in the B-roll. And Hugo Martin told me that I'm the only person he gave this information to because I'm the speculative theory crafting guy. The Reaver Chain Shot came from an alternate dimension. Later, when we talk about parrying projectiles, he also told me that one special form of projectile, the purple projectile, also comes from that alternate dimension. The Reaver Chain Shot is also, arguably, the best weapon in the game, and it comes from an alternate dimension. The shield can be upgraded in general, so basic passive buffs. But around the mid-game, you will unlock what are called shield runes. These are active abilities that are charged through parries. The shield itself will have slots that you can place these runes in, and they really affect how the game feels. The runes that we currently know about are the shoulder-mounted turret, ethereal daggers, an area of effect lightning attack, and a fissure earthquake. All of these shield runes can also be upgraded. The melee weapons also appear to have a progression path, part of that being that you unlock the 3 melee weapons throughout the game, but we really didn't discuss how the melee weapons themselves will be upgraded or how those upgrades will change gameplay. The player themselves also has a progression path, increasing the total capacity of ammo, health, and armor. This is upgraded by participating in optional, more difficult fights with enemies that have the symbol of either health, armor, or ammo above their heads. These enemies are more powerful and sometimes even have different attacks and different projectiles to their normal state. Upon defeating them, the Slayer will pull their heart out and crush it, not dissimilar to how the player upgraded themselves in Doom 2016. Hugo describes the combat loop of this game as a war against the demons, and as such, the demons are fighting accordingly. Now, this is due to the expanded capabilities of the id-Tech engine and allowing for many, many more demons to be placed in a level at one time, allowing for formation encounters. Formation encounters is a large group of enemies that all form in a specific, well, as it's called, formation. Behind the formation is the formation leader, which is protected by a gold shield and represented by a banner flying overhead. The player, after defeating a certain number of the formation enemies, will break the leader's shield. And once the leader is taken out, all the remaining formation enemies will just disappear. As discussed in a lot of this game's pre-release materials, glory kills have been changed to be more active. How this actually works is that glory kills are player controlled. Effectively, your melee attack has charges, which can be used against enemies when they are in a faltered state. These charges are gained slowly over time, not dissimilar to the blood punch. However, perfect parries also immediately recharge an execution melee attack. These execution attacks are entirely player controlled and effectively do exactly what glory kills did, which also return resources to the player when done correctly. That said, the classic animation-based glory kills aren't gone entirely. They're used significantly less, and they're kind of only kept for either shield saw kills, which cutting a Mancubus in half is shown in the B-roll, or used when in the Atlan or the Dragon. In fact, the Dragon itself has its own set of glory kills. One animation is shown, being the dragon puking fire down the throat of a titan and then the titan exploding, but Hugo told me there were 2 others. The dragon grabbing a titan's horns and doing a twirl, snapping the titan's neck, or the dragon biting and ripping out the titan's throat. The way the entire combat system melds together is by looking at the player's arsenal as 3 pillars: melee, shield, and guns. Melee is for resource collection, with execution kills returning ammo, health, and armor to the player. The shield is for exploiting enemy weaknesses, either with the shield bash, the shield throw, or the shield saw, faltering the enemy and allowing for those execution kills. The guns are to hurt. hurt fodder enemies, bring down health to allow for a falter state more easily, or to open up weaknesses, they all gel together into a single cohesive flow state, and each of them are just as important as each other, and they all hold their own progression paths, as we previously discussed. 1-ups are returning. However, 1-ups have been balanced. The player can only hold 5 1-ups at one time. However, if the player is already full of 1-ups, I asked Hugo if finding a 1-up would then grant the player gold or some kind of upgrade resource, to which I was told that's something they've talked about, but he doesn't know if this is something they've decided fully on. I hope they do, because finding a secret with a 1-up in it, when you already have 5 1-ups, completely deflates the purpose of finding that secret. Now, the Atlan and the Dragon are pace breakers. They seem like they really shake up the formula of Doom and allow this 22-level game to not feel samey and repetitive all the way through. I was told that there are 4 Dragon encounters and 3 Atlan encounters. The Atlan encounters effectively being their own levels, but the Dragon encounters still being standard Doom Slayer on the ground, but the Dragon is used to get the player from different points. And when the Dragon is in the air, it has its own combat system, its own glory kills, and even its own what are described as mini-games, where you're dodging projectiles, racing to objectives, or doing a barrel roll. This was all compared to Star Fox 64 explicitly. Each of these types of encounters, the Atlan and the Dragon, all have their own mini-bosses, and as Hugo called it, the craziest boss encounter that he's ever made. It's all shaping up to be really cool. As for locations, I asked a few questions. In one of the trailers, there's this scene that looks a lot like the 2016 UAC, and I asked about it, and this is a unique location. This is the only place that looks like the 2016 UAC, and this is actually the Atlan Forge. This is where research and development and manufacturing is done for the mechs, called Atlans in the game. This area is full of extra lore details through in-game holograms that are shown in the level and different prototype stages of the Atlans themselves on display. Open-ended levels, or sandboxes as Hugo calls them, have players take on objectives in any order, similar to Foundry in Doom 2016. And one example, which is shown in the B-roll, is the Siege level, where the player is tasked of destroying 5 Oblivion gates. Gore portals. These portals are destroyed by defeating the enemies that are defending it, and then behind the portals is a reward. In the B-roll, the player is shown destroying a gore portal, and behind it is a bunch of gold. Now, everything that we have been shown in the B-roll and in the trailers is pretty much just from the first act of 3 acts. This is 22 levels. We've only seen a tiny portion of the game, and apparently the second half of the game cranks things up in so many different ways by changing how the game feels through player progression and introducing new ways to progress the player, such as the shield runes. This progression can make weapons feel entirely different between the beginning and end of the game. One example is the rocket launcher acting more like a shotgun, as Hugo put it. In that, one of the upgrades for the rocket launcher that Hugo told me about was a removal of player self-damage upon perfect parries. Meaning, if a player is playing correctly, they can effectively use the rocket launcher at close range with very little damage to themselves. A shotgun rocket launcher. Thank you so much to Hugo and Bethesda for cluing me into all of this. Doom: The Dark Ages is currently my most anticipated game that has been officially announced, wink wink, and if you're at all interested in id Software and the company that id Software is responsible for creating, Valve Software, then you'll love this YouTube channel. Get subscribed. I'm Tyler McVicker, the Passionate Gamer. Thank you so much for watching. Invite link to my Discord server where we talk about everything that I'm working on down in the description below, and if you want to support videos like this and get your name in the credits, check out my Patreon page down in the description below. I'm Tyler McVicker, the Passionate Gamer. I will talk to you later. Peace and hair grease. Adios.